Hey, welcome. Lawrence from Business Beats here. How you going? Thanks for joining us today. A short, quick ep today. What I'm doing today is I've highlighted a few questions that have been sent in and thought I'd unpack a few of those. Some of them key four questions there based on maybe the last four episodes. So I want to unpack that, see if I can provide some value. So let's dive in. So the first question is, so you talk about getting the recruitment process right. What can we do to improve the recruitment process in our business? It's certainly been a challenge. Yeah, look, it is, right. Yeah, it's and by the way, here's a couple of things that you should understand about recruitment is that everyone gets it wrong. No one's an expert in it, not even those who've been doing it for 20 years like me, right? So it's a very, very hard space to play in, and it's very difficult. So and here's the thing, I think with recruitment, if I was to provide you a little bit of advice, I don't know the size of your company or how big you are, but look, there's a couple of things you can do. You can use a recruitment company. Look, I'm not the biggest fan of recruitment companies. I used to own a recruitment company or a couple, and so I know recruitment pretty well. But it's very hard for an individual in a third-party company to understand your business and recruit for it well, right? So plus, it's very costly, right? They'll charge 10 to 15 to 20% of the annual gross, which can be 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, even $50,000, right? So I know you get a guarantee for 3 months, but man, that is just not enough sometimes. Sometimes it's not till 6 months in that you realize the person you've just spent all that money on is no good. And then the guarantees expired. So you want to be careful with that. That's not my biggest play. I would not probably do that if I was a small business. I'm a fan of bootstrapping a company, so I would bootstrap the recruitment process. The first thing I would do is write up an avatar for the role. Like what type of person you're looking for. So it's not just about skills and experience. It's about what type of person you're looking for. Like, what characteristics do you want them to have? How old do you want them to be? Where do you want them to live? What sort of car do you want them to drive? I actually have that in my avatar. I have an avatar for, say, a sales agent, right, or a sales executive, or an SDR, or a business development person. I want them to be a certain age. I want them to be degree qualified at a minimum. Batch or even a master's would be great. They've left university, graduated, and maybe had 1 or 2 years experience in a sales role. Could be retail. It could be hospitality. It could be door to door or anything like that. That's the type of candidate I'm looking for. On top of that, what I look for is attitude. I look for good communication skills, and I look for intelligence. All right. And then I try to figure out if they're coachable. Those are the 4 key things I look for, same sales agent. So I've created an avatar of what that person looks like, and you don't stem outside of it. Look, the second thing is have a set salary range and don't change it for anything. What happens in companies is that, and we do it all the time, by the way, is that we find this great candidate, or we think they're great, and they say, I've got 10 years experience, the role's paying 65,000, but they say, no, I'm not going to do it for anything less than 80. Then you compromise that base salary, which shakes your P&L a little bit, by the way, and then you commit to that, right? Now what you've done is you've overcommitted financially to the role. So when the individual becomes unsuccessful, if they become unsuccessful, it shakes you more because you're thinking, man, I'm paying 15,000 more than what I wanted to, and this person's not the right person. So that just makes it harder on everybody, including the candidate, right? So don't do that. So have an avatar, get a base salary that's pursuant to finding a good quality candidate. It doesn't have to be way above the market, right? You might have say for a sales agent, we have a commission schedule where they can double their income, or, they can earn twice what the base salary is in 12 months, as long as they're coachable, they're intelligent, they communicate well, all those things that we look for in our avatar. So avatar, base salary, lock it down and do not compromise it. You need to put it into a recruitment manual, and you need to get your whole team across it. It is so critical to get that right. And then I say high, slow, and fire fast, right? Recruitment, our ego is wrapped up in all of our recruitment. We recruit the wrong person, and we know we're fucking bad at it, and we don't let it go because it's a boost or it's a hit to our ego, right? But we want them to be successful. So we try and find ways or find excuses, is probably a better word for it, to keep them around. You know what I mean? And then the pressure builds up, and over a period of time, they either quit or you just have to fire them. And then you've wasted 6 months of salary, time, expectation, and all the other bullshit that comes with it. So get the recruitment interview correct would be my take. And what does that mean? I said, well, look, let me run you through what I would say to somebody. I say really strong things. I said, look, this job's really challenging. How do you handle challenges? So I try to paint a really bad picture of the role, that it's going to be really, really hard. But if you can be successful at it, you're going to earn twice the amount that you did in your previous role. And you're going to love it here, because I think you might fit our culture. Because we look after our people, we've got your back, you've got room to grow here, you've got room to apply for other roles within the company, move sideways, move upwards. And anyone who applies for a job in this company can be the CEO. Anybody. It's just a matter of, how long are you going to stick around, how good are you, and how hard are you prepared to work, right? So have an ethos wrapped around the recruitment process and the interview as well. And be honest with your candidates, please. If you start the interview process with a resume on a table and a pen, and you say, hey, so you worked at Matt Damon's company, XYZ, tell me about that. That sounds really interesting. That is a waste of time. If you go, okay, so tell me about the 5 things that you used to do in your previous role. And then if you could rate yourself from 1 to 5 on each of those things that you were doing, like that is pretty old school interview, right? That stuff doesn't work anymore. Will candidates lie to you all the time? Are their resumes falsified all the time? And now with ChatGPT, they're probably going to be worse, right? So you really need to figure out how to cut through all the bullshit and just get to the point. Right, so don't have a face-to-face interview if you haven't done a 5-minute virtual first, right? Like, don't have a virtual if they're compromising your avatar or the candidate that you're looking for. So for us, if they don't have a degree, why would we even put them in a pile of consideration? What a waste of time. We don't do that. Well, we don't do that anymore. So just to recap, have an avatar. Structure some ethos around how you interview. Put that interview down on paper so it's staged and you have a process to it. Have a recruitment process of how you pre-qualify, and then do you do a virtual before you go to a face-to-face. The face-to-faces should only be 30 minutes as well, right? How many are you going to have, and then what people need to be involved in those. And then the 5th thing is the accountability to the role, right? You have to hold them accountable to the role. So if you were to start them and they were successful, you will walk them through the process, right? For the first 4 weeks, we do 30 days, we're doing this. For the second 30 days, we're doing this. And for the third 30 days, we're doing this. Now, by any of these timeframes in these 30-day sections, we may let you go. I want you to know that, right? So there's 2 ways that I look at that. If they're existing in the market, which we don't normally look for, there would need to be special circumstances for a candidate to be unemployed, so to speak, that we would recruit. But however, we will still look at them. They might be transitioning from uni to a job or from one job to another, and then we've just happened to catch them and they've changed their mind on moving into that role, maybe something like that. We would bring them in fast and we will fire them by Friday. Right. And if they had to leave a job, we commit to them. We take that commitment. But 30 days would be the shortest commitment, and 90 days would be the longest. If they get to 90 days, we would normally keep them. They'll work out. So look, I hope that helps. But very difficult. Recruitment is always a challenging space for any company. So good luck with that. I hope that helped. I've got another question here. What is it? We're trying to use AI in our business, but we're not too sure where. Where do we start, and what should we focus on? So we're trying to use AI in our business, but we're not too sure where. Where do we start, and what should we focus on? Good question. Good question. It's complicated, right? Because it's new. So, okay. So let me start with artificial intelligence, right? The thing is that what do you know about it? Like, are you just running into a blindie like Bambi running through the forest, right? So, or have you committed some sort of thought? So I don't really have all the context around the question, but let me just assume that You don't know a lot about it. You know a little bit about it. You're like a medium-sized company, SME to medium-sized company, and you're trying to figure out how you use it in the business to be more efficient, right? So the first thing is, what do you know about it? So you just really need to do some research on it, learn about it, and get other people involved in it. If you have an internal IT guy, he's probably normally the guy that you would use. If you don't, find a consultant that you can lean into, right? And then nominate a champion in the business. It could be the HR person if you don't have a tech person, or a tech person kid in the business who does admin, right? Like, I don't know, but you'll have to find that person. Someone has to champion it. So you'll just have to try and figure out who that's going to be. That said, the next step would be, where would you apply it in your business? Damn good question. People struggle with this, right? So for us, all I can do is tell you what we do, and hopefully you can apply that, or that gives you some context and help in your own business. But so we look for the low-hanging fruit with AI, so we can learn it as we tackle the easier tasks, right? So we tackle the easy tasks first. So that might be, so we've got a live bot on our website that's fueled powered by ChatGPT 3.5, I think. And we just did that. Now that took us 3 months to do because we had to train the bot in our products, right? And I've spoken about this before, we had to load in our data set. So what it did, it forced us to create a data set, to build the data set, review the data set, put the data set into a space that ChatGPT could learn from the data set. And then we set up a staging site, and then we attached it to the staging site. And then we had everybody in the company throw questions at it. Will we get Italian meatballs at 2 a.m. in the morning? All these really random things, not to mention just asking questions about the product. And then over a period of sort of 2 months, we thought, look, we're not quite there yet. Let's give it another 30 days. And then in 30 days, we ran a test across it. It was pretty good. And then we launched it. But here's the problem. When you launch an AI product, say like a bot, right, that's there for your customers to engage with, what happens is that most companies just move on to the next thing and forget about the first story they just built, right? Don't do that. It is the biggest failure with AI at the moment, because what happens is you need to track the AI, make sure it's not telling anybody to drive their car off a cliff, right? So just we review it every 14 days, and now it's gone to every 30 days, and we'll do that for 6 months, right? So we have it's easy, just set up on the calendar. Someone goes in and they do a test on it. We have a set amount of questions to make sure those questions haven't stemmed too far from the original training. And then we just keep an eye on it. You have a duty to do that, make sure that it's giving the right information to your clients. Okay, so we're doing that. So the chatbot was our first thing. So maybe you could just start there. Maybe you could just start with the chatbot, get the chatbot up and running, play around with it, test it, have some fun with it. We call ours Ben Affleck. Don't know why. I thought that was pretty funny. Shout out to you, Ben Affleck. And he's pretty good, right? Like he does this thing. And he's pretty accurate. So if you ask it, do you guys sell X program? It'll say, yes, we do. If you want to speak to somebody, here's a link, click on this and book an appointment. Or it might say, how much does it cost? It'll give you the payment plans and then give you a link to go and pay for it on your credit card, or pick an internal payment plan or a finance option, right? So that's really valuable when you think about it for a business, because you can plug that into an e-commerce strategy to sell products, right? So you really want to think about that as being probably the easiest thing that you could do. The next thing we're working on is how do we apply it to. So we have a training, an education online program course company. God, I'm going to get that out right. So we sell courses online to companies, right, across a whole range of different cohorts. So we're trying to find a learning management system that we can use some AI to give engagement with the customer. So that's our next thing we're working on. That's a big project. So we will go to an external provider to help us map all that together. Yep. So that's not an easy task. That's how we've decided to take a big leap and get really advanced to that. The other one is we have a document analyst role in our company, and we'll probably use AI to scan that. So it was never about getting rid of roles for us. It's about how can we use those people more efficiently doing more important things, right? So just do an analysis across your business on where you think you can add value and be more efficient, right? So you're looking for efficiencies. So there's little efficiency economies inside your business that, those arduous, really boring tasks can be done by artificial intelligence, and just start there. So get an external consultant to help you, have your champion in the business, and then just dive in and make some mistakes. Because if you don't start, well, then it's, you'll never get there. That would be my advice. Next question. Next question. I don't know what that one means. This one here. So we are cold calling leads. Here's a good one. We're cold calling leads in our business. It's good, but we seem to be churning a lot of staff. What would you advise we do to lower the churn? So we're cold calling leads in the business. It's good for us, but we're churning a lot of staff. What would you advise we do to lower that churn rate? Yeah, okay. Well, cold calling, it's old school. It still works though, right? The thing I like about it, to me, it just creates energy. It's fun to do. And it builds a strong culture in a sales force. That's what I think. We have just started doing that again, actually. We launched that only this week and set the CRM so we could just have a bit of fun. And the sales team did a call drive, which I sat in on with them, which I thought was amazing. And I thought they did really well at it. And one thing that I realized when we were doing it and I was listening is that it forced a different psychology in the team. It forced them to think outside the box. It forced everybody to come up with sort of pitches and introductions to the company that they've never done before, or they haven't done for a while. We used to do that in the really early days, right? When I was a young entrepreneur trying to build a $100 million company when I was like 26. But it's cool. I like it. I think it's got cred, right? I think it's got a little bit of cred, and I don't think you should do it all the time. But I think if you did it intermittently, I think you use it as a training resource, right? A training tool for your staff to become strong and robust, right? Basically in an environment in a society where we've gotten a little bit weak, especially in that sales space, right? So I like it. I think it's pretty cool. What would you do to lower churn? Well, don't do it every day. You need to find ways to, get good quality leads to your team and run them through lead conversion strategies, or run them through qualification strategies. So your agents are speaking to customers more frequently than, like dialing people all day and not getting anywhere, because that's where the frustration comes in, and that's where your churn will be born. Essentially, is the 100 calls a day, and they're not speaking to anyone. If you run the math across, so I did an algorithm on this. You make 100 calls to inbound leads, right? So these are inbound leads. It's not cold. Inbound leads, 100 leads come in. The agent calls 100 leads. Out of the 100 leads, 10 people will answer. He'll book 5 appointments. Out of the 5 appointments, 50% of those will answer, so 2.5. Out of the 2.5 that do answer, half of that, another 50% break, will go on to become a customer, right? You'd have to put them into a nurturing campaign, have a few meetings with them, and then they will become a customer. Like, that's sort of the deal, right? It's like, it doesn't really get any, it's not faster than that. It's not higher than that. Like, if you ran your business on that algorithm and you base your forecast on it and your financials on it, financial forecasting, you'd pretty much be in good stead. So think about what that looks like for you. But the churn thing it's probably because you could be recruiting the wrong people. You don't want them to be too oversensitive if you're cold calling. You need to be pretty young and strong, and you got to keep the energy up in the team. You got to find ways to keep them settled, eliminate the stress, and you need to make it fun. If you're not doing that, that could be attributing to your churn. The other thing is, you don't need to cold call every day. Find some money and pay for leads. Set up an ad on Facebook, and what it'll do, that'll break the tension in the team. And you can wrap a competition around it. It could be, if you get to X, we're going to give you new leads that we are paying for that are coming through Meta or Google, whatever it might be. I don't know. You got to think about that. But so write it down on paper and speak to your people. Why are they leaving? Are you doing exit interviews? I think exit interviews are really, really critical, because it's the only time when an employee will be 100% honest with you, to a point, right? Some of them will during the course of their employment when you go to an appraisal, but really, come on now. When they leave a business and they have that exit interview with the person who did not hire them, by the way, you don't have the incoming hiring person be the exit person. Have a separate exit person, because the hiring person could have been the problem. Like, So run your filter across that as well. So three things there. Make sure you got your recruitment process right. Four things actually. Do an exit interview. Get the information from your salespeople while they're churning at such a high rate. If you're cold calling and cold calling only, that will be attributing to churn, 100%. And why don't you also focus on energy and keeping the team happy, right? You got to keep the culture up and buoyant, have sales games with them, set competitions and all that sort of stuff. That's probably what I would do without having too much context about your business. I hope that helped. Okay, time for one more question. I don't know what that means. That's not even really a question. Here's one: culture. We want to improve our culture, but we don't know what to do with that. Help. So culture, we want to improve our culture, but we don't know what to do about or how to approach it. Help. Yeah, culture. People talk about it all the time, right? And I don't even think they know what they're talking about when they talk about culture. Because there's sort of so much in there. It's like, is culture people? Is it the team? Is it the individual? Is it driven by the leadership team, the management team? Is there a bad one? Is there a good one? Is there one at all? Do you have a culture deck? Do you have a policy around it? Like, there's all these things. So without knowing all of the details, I would say a couple of simple things. Is culture important? Yeah, absolutely, it's important. I think it's important. I think people are important, and I think people in the business are important. And I think it should be focused on, but it shouldn't be overly focused on. I think, you don't need to have all the meetings and all the forms and all the policies. What you need to do is you need to operate on a couple of simple principles. Now, I'm not saying that we get that right in our business. I hope to think that we get some of it right. Is treat your people with respect. That's that's pretty simple. But there's a flip side to that. You have to hold them accountable, right? Because you pay them to do a job, and they should do the job. And if they can't do the job, well, then you have to counsel them on that, right? Like, these are simple principles of employment. And don't underestimate culture as being higher than employment, because sometimes it's just not. Culture can be very practical, right? It doesn't need to be about the emotion. First, it should be about the application, and the application is the employment. The employment is attached to the role of the individual, the human, right? So if I employ Ben Affleck to be a administrator for the company, now, if Ben decides that he wants to start to become unreliable and turn up late, 3 days out of 5, and it's been going on for 3 months, like, hey, you got to get Ben Affleck in a room and you've got to talk to him. You've got to say, Ben, look, your film career is not great, but the Batman gig was a good score. No harm, no foul. But you've got to step your game up, mate. You can't turn up late all the time. Now, that vertical, that one element, is an element that will attach itself to culture. Well, in the minds of everybody, it will anyway. But it shouldn't be. It's just an element, right? So culture is normally a group of people. But what happens in that environment, I find, is that the person goes into the group, and then that shakes the group, and then that affects the culture. And then people start attributing it to culture. And I don't actually know whether that's accurate. I think that's a little bit bogus. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's an easy thing to say, but that's not what it is. An individual's instance of poor behavior or lack of reliability or inability to do their job efficiently and productively is not culture. That is not attached to culture. I don't think it is. The problem with culture, though, in today's society, is that they think everything is attached to culture. A table tennis table is about culture. We're not Google people. We don't have room for a table tennis table. But those sorts of things, they think you create. Like, there's this thing about Google, right? I've got this little thing about Google where, when Google first started and built that amazing office, and you saw it in movies and you saw it on newscasts and all this sort of stuff, You've got to understand that most companies don't have access to that. They don't have that type of money. You know what I mean? So you can't build that culture. And if you try and build that culture like that, that's not what you need to build culture. Build culture should be based on a good quality leadership team who truly support their people, who operate with integrity, who are honest, who are transparent, who are forceful, who are supportive, and who have a innate ability to just want to help people, right? That's culture. Like a slide from one level down to another, a table tennis table, and some scooters in the office is not culture. Those toys, those tools, that's not what forms a beautiful culture in a company. So, and by the way, that's monopoly money. People don't understand that with Google. That's monopoly money. The amount of investors, that those guys got on board and started that business, and then when they went public, the shareholders they have through that company, it's just crazy. Like you can't that money. There's a lot of money in that business being thrown at that company. So the average company or the person who wrote this question, I'm sure, are not turning over, $37 billion a year, right? So maybe you're turning over 370 and you've got 3 staff, right? So for those people, it's just got to be nice and simple. You know what I mean? So my thing is with culture, if you want to improve it and you don't know where to start, ask your staff, right? Buy a book. Write down some things that are important to you as a founder or as an owner. And, these are the 3 things that are really important to me, that my team work hard, that I pay them well, and that when they come into this office, they're learning new things. That's a good start to a culture. Like, I don't know why everyone makes it so complicated and they hire HR people and they start focusing on all this. Now, I get it when you're a big company, but when you're a SME in a very small company, you just don't have that luxury. So I'm just talking to those companies. Look, just start small and just do the best you can. As long as you're trying to improve your culture, well, then that's fine. Like you should do that, right? Anything you can do. Anyway, look, that's all I've got. There's a few more questions there. I might leave those for another time. I hope that helped. Look, I hope you found something that you liked or that you think may work for your business. Love to hear any comments if you got them. Just drop them through, and we're happy to come back and answer any of those comments. If you haven't already, look, we're a non-profit venture, so click the subscribe button, hit the bell, wherever that may be on the screen. We'd love for you to subscribe. We try to push out as much content and good content as we can. And we've got some great interviews coming up with some pretty awesome entrepreneurs and artists. So stay tuned for that. Really appreciate you watching and look forward to speaking to you next time. Thanks.